So this video serves as a sort of follow-up to my House of the Dead retrospective series over on my main channel, Zillennial Dissonance. Enough of you were curious about my thoughts on the ports of the House of the Dead remake that I figured I might as well give my quick thoughts here. Unscripted, not really edited together in the same way that the videos on my main channel are. So funnily enough, the same day that I put out my review of the remake, Megapixel Studios announced ports. So we got announcements of ports for the PS4, Xbox One, and of course, Stadia. Oh, and I guess there's also a PC version. So yeah, PC version of House of the Dead Remake, pretty exciting stuff. So if you watched my review of House of the Dead Remake, then you'll know that my biggest problems with the game stemmed from a lot of the technical issues that we had. And earlier today, the game came out on Steam, and I gave it a few playthroughs. There are definitely a lot of improvements. Now, there's not a lot here that is going to shock anybody or that's drastically different, but it's essentially the same game, just technically far superior to the original. And because it's on PC, there's also the potential for us to see mods and other improvements and just fun little changes. In fact, today, on the day that the remake came out, we actually saw somebody mod the original music into the game. Now, I'm still really new to modding, so I wasn't able to do this to my game and experience it. So most of my review thoughts are just going to be on kind of the base experience, but knowing that that kind of mod is possible and knowing that we can also mod in support for a gun controller, yeah, that's really exciting. So getting into the main game itself, the graphics are looking a lot better than they did on the Switch. In fact, it's kind of night and day. We have all of these cool new lighting effects and the shadows, and just like lighting is probably the thing that I really noticed the most. The other thing is pop-in as well is also not really a thing anymore. There's still a couple instances of pop-in here and there, but like it's severely less noticeable, and it's not jarring in the same way that it was in the Switch version. And of course, the thing that I cared about the most was just the frame rate. It's finally stable. Now, the resolution and the settings that I played it at, I wasn't getting the best frame rates all the time. Sometimes it was still a little inconsistent here or there, but on the whole, it's a huge improvement over the Switch version, and it at least feels stable. And, I didn't have any stuttering that I felt detracted from my experience. And if I want to guarantee a consistently, perfect frame rate, then I'd probably just have to tweak a few settings. But right here, we're getting superior visuals, superior frame rate consistently. I don't know if it goes above 60. My monitor goes up to 144 hertz, and I wasn't able to notice it going above 60, but I also have terrible, eyes for this kind of thing, so I can't really tell that. But on the whole, the game looks and just runs a lot better. Again, we already have a mod that allows us to put music in there. So, from a technical perspective, the game just feels so much better. Another thing that I really liked is a significant reduction in the loading times, which were decently long on the Switch. But here on the PC that I'm playing this on, basically just 2-3 seconds at most, and you're into the next level. So that helps the pacing a lot. For reference, I'm playing this on a PC that's decked out with an RTX 3070, Ryzen 9 3900X CPU, 64 gigs of RAM, which I need for video editing, and I also have an ultra-wide monitor. So I've got some pretty decent specs, and I was playing this game pretty much maxed out. And, some of the stuttering that you're seeing here is just because of the fact that I was using OBS to record on the same PC at the same time. So there are a few discrepancies here. The game was actually running smoothly for me in instances where it didn't look very smooth in the gameplay that's being played back. You'll also see that I have some different aspect ratios going on. I have an ultra wide monitor, and so I was able to play the game in an ultra wide aspect ratio, which I didn't think would work, but it works pretty well, and it actually gives me some more screen real estate to avoid some of those situations where zombies would attack me or should I say mutants, since that's technically the correct term. There are still a few things that I don't like about this remake. You know, it's the way that the camera kind of jostles and moves around. I'm still not a crazy fan of that. The game looks much better, but there are still a few little details here or there where, you know, I'm not crazy about them. I think the game is more contrasty and more just kind of vibrant and colorful compared to the Switch version. Again, playing with a mouse, it just feels much better. But because I had better controls, I was better able to notice some of the bullshit with some of these enemies that basically launch at you at Mach speed and give you no time to damage them. Whereas in the original game, you know, there was always at least a bit of time. Even when they were launching at you, they were slow enough that you could still catch them if you were quick enough. But here, they move a little too quickly. So that's pretty annoying. So bosses like Hangman and the Magician, I had a much easier time with here than I did on the Switch. But I still struggled with Chariot, the very first boss, who is still very aggressive about moving towards you. Whereas in the original game, you could just kind of stun lock him and keep him kind of in place. And there were also a couple of weird little hiccups with the game kind of loading things in. There was this one instance where I went up an elevator and there's supposed to be just more of the level, but for a moment there's just a brick wall kind of in the way, and then it just pops out of existence. That didn't ruin the experience or anything, but that was still just kind of a weird little thing to see happen. I don't like the way that the camera moves around to focus on enemies. I think that ends up messing me up a lot. There's this little instance here where you go up the spiral and the game kind of centers both of these enemies. Whereas in the original game, the camera was pretty much still and you just had to quickly shoot both of them. That's just kind of an example. It's not enough to ruin the game, and once you know to anticipate that, you can get better. And, you know, the game doesn't have anything that I would just consider outright to be bullshit. Maybe a couple instances here or there, but on the whole, I think it is definitely doable to get through the game without taking any damage whatsoever, especially since, again, it looks and runs so much better. And, you know, in comparison to the Switch version, this just feels silky, buttery smooth. And playing it in ultra wide is kind of crazy because this is the same PC that I played the original game on. So to go from this 4:3 box aspect ratio to having a lot of room while playing the same game, it's pretty funny, I think. But yeah, that's about as much as I really have to say. I didn't go through and collect all the achievements, although I'm sure I probably will over time. This was just to give my quick thoughts. So now that I've played through this improved and enhanced version of the game, I want to revisit the question that I asked at the end of the first video, which is, does this game live up to the original? And as of right now, I still want to say not quite. But this is actually a pretty solid game now. Like the Switch version, I would probably give a 6 out of 10 to. I don't really do number scores, but if I did, I'd probably put it about there. On PC, the game is a lot closer to like an 8, 8.5 out of 10. So it's a lot better. And at this point, I say the game is worth getting. It goes for about, $25 here in the US. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I think the PC version is a huge, definite improvement, especially when compared to even compared to PS4 and Xbox One, which are both also improvements over this game. The PC has enhanced, control options. The graphics on the whole look better than the PS4, which looks better than the Switch, so you're kind of going up in graphical quality. Another detail I forgot to mention is that zombies don't dissolve into mush here. They actually stay loaded in, which is kind of more realistic. In the arcade game, they just kind of flickered out of existence. So I think this makes it a little less distracting when they do the whole mushy gooey thing, and I honestly, having now played it, vastly prefer the way that it's done here. So yeah, higher resolution, graphics, options, everything. PC just definitely makes this game a lot better. But again, I still don't quite think it lives up to the original game, in my opinion. I still think that, that game has its place, but I'm sure once we get music modded into this game, maybe other mods that add in, kind of classic graphics options, the graphics options that we're familiar with. Yeah, this is probably going to be much closer to it. And honestly, within this engine, we might actually be able to get a proper duplication of the classic game. So we'll see if that ever happens. I at least want to see some of those classic enemy models return. That'd be really cool. Yeah, it sucks that you have to jump through the hoop of modding in order to fix things that, people really like. So like the music is a big thing, and having to mod the original music back in, I would much rather it just be there. So that is still, a knock against the game as a whole. But again, playing this remake some more, listening to the new music, again, that new music keeps growing on me the more I listen to it. And I think it's pretty good. So the way I like to see it is that this is just a brand new House of the Dead game that just so happens to take place in the original game's location and pays a lot of references to it. Yeah, that's my outlook on the situation. Yeah, can you tell I didn't really write a script for this? I'm just sort of speaking whatever word vomit is in my brain. But yeah, I'd say this is definitely an improvement. I'm much happier with this game. I'm never going back to the Switch version. In fact, I'm probably just gonna uninstall it. Not that it doesn't have its place. I mean, if you really want to play that game on the go, then sure, go for it. But yeah, PC and also PS4, also great version. You're probably not going to want this on Xbox since you only have the option to use a controller, which is not a fun way to play. Although, I mean, you do have a better frame rate, but again, you don't want to play this with the controller. Same for Stadia. I don't know how it handles on that. But with the PS4, you also have gyro controls, and you have PlayStation Move controller support, which I might make another follow-up video once that gets patched in. It's not there yet, but the official House of the Dead Remake Twitter did announce that they are going to add that in later through an update. So that'll probably be, another great version. Won't look quite as good as the PC, and you still have like all that mushy, gooey dissolveness, whatever. Although they're probably also going to update it for PS5, so that'll also more than likely look better than the version that's currently there. But yes, I think on the whole, any version that's not the Switch version, it's going to look and run a lot better, pretty good. I'll probably pick up the PS4 version once they add move support and give that a playthrough. So yeah, those are just my quick, immediate thoughts on the game after a few playthroughs. If you're wanting to see me talk about other House of the Dead related stuff, I have a whole retrospective video over on the main channel, as well as another video that talks about the Switch version a little bit more in depth and kind of covers my complete thoughts. But I wanted to make this as sort of a little addendum to just kind of see where we're at. I'm also doing a little video kind of recreating this other video that I made for the main channel, showing what this version of the game is like, but with the original classic music. Because for some reason I decided that that would be easier than going through the not very difficult steps of modding the game. Shut up, I don't know. What did you guys think of the remake, and which version did you decide to pick up? Go ahead and let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.